to take your seat. Time to take your seat.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Retro Review Show with your host, myself, Marcus, and I'm joined by fellow admin, Paul. How are you, Paul?
Good, thank you.
That's good. Today we're going to be talking about world-class strikers. Now, because there's so many of them, we're only going to do 6 today. So if we miss anyone, it's a show for another day, as they say. So without further ado, we'll get things kicked off, and I'll start with Alan Shearer. Okay, Alan Shearer predominantly played for 3 teams: Southampton, Blackburn, and Newcastle. The funny thing about Alan Shearer is people know him for Newcastle, Paul. But as you can see where I'm going with this, I believe he made his name with Blackburn. Do you agree?
Yeah, he was definitely came through at Blackburn, in my opinion. That's what happened, and got his move to Newcastle because of his obviously what he achieved.
Yeah, of course. I think if we're going to talk about Shearer's achievements, I think his goals speak volumes. He is the all-time Premier League goal scoring record. I think everyone knows what that is, 260. I think we all know that. But just under half of those goals were at Blackburn. So it'll tell you how many he's actually scored. He got 112 for Blackburn and 148 for Newcastle Premier League goals.
Wow!
So he might have more in the cup and so in European competitions and other cups. He was Player of the Year twice in '95 and '96. The only thing I would doubt Shearer's ability, and I know we're trying to big these players up, would you agree that on the international stage he probably wasn't quite prolific?
I think he was. I think he was built up more than what he was. I mean, there's no doubt what he did for the England team, because obviously he was captain as well. But yeah, I mean, he should have probably scored more goals than what he did, and obviously he had decent strike partners who complemented him as well. So yeah, I mean, what's his record?
For Newcastle, for England.
Yeah.
He's only got 30 international goals.
Wow.
And there's a lot of people that in the current game have surpassed that, and they talk about Belgium's golden era, or England in their golden era, and are England always in their golden era because they always produce good teams. But you think with the players that Shearer was built around, could they have got more?
Yeah, possibly. Obviously, we've just got a comment from Gab Mack on here saying 1 in 2 record for England obviously is pretty good, which it is actually in hindsight. Yes. But you just think Shearer may have scored more goals, I suppose, especially because the team was built around him.
Yeah. So. From what I gather, though, I think we can both obviously agree on that. His domestic record. I give you a crazy stat from Blackburn. In 138 games for Blackburn in the Premier League, was 112 goals. It's almost goal for goal.
Yeah.
And Gav, yes, I totally agree with your comments, the 1 and 2, and this comment I've just got now.
That's probably your Honda.
No, Gav, we know these records and we know these stats. We're not doubting his ability, but we're saying could he have scored more? I'm saying that's what we're trying to get across. These are strikers. We're not degrading this man at all. I think
the guy is on. The thing is about Marcus, we're talking about Alan Shearer because certainly you do, and I do as well. The guy was world class. There's no doubt about it. It's just interesting to look at some of the stats in a bit more detail. But yeah.
And then again, with the stats again for Newcastle again, I think he was 1 and 2 again, 1 every 2 because it's 303 appearances, 148 goals. Again, it's 1 and 2. So again, I mean, look, there's no doubt about this player. He's your typical number 9, and in today's game, is Harry Kane the new Alan Shearer? What do you think about that?
I've never been a massive fan of basically comparing players with players purely because we had that debate this morning around obviously different eras and things like that. And I think Harry Kane is Harry Kane. He's not Alan Shearer. And Alan Shearer was tough. There's a comment here from Danny actually, which I totally agree. Actually, I'm going to bring it up here. So he basically on the pitch was once he got onto the pitch, obviously he did what he did. Alan Shearer, he was lethal, and he wants to do everything he could do to obviously win games. And I saw that. I mean, I'm old enough to remember some of the goals he scored. Obviously for Blackburn, which took them to the title. And he was very, very unlucky, really, that when he went to Newcastle, he didn't kind of do him justice, really. But yeah. Again, some comments on here. Amazing on the pitch, he was absolutely.
Of course. And the thing about him and Blackburn was Martin Flaherty, I believe, is a follower on this page, would agree with me that an SAS mission was called because he had Sutton. With Newcastle, he didn't really have the partner because there were so many of them, wasn't there?
Say again, sorry?
Because with Shearer, he was with Sutton most of the time at Blackburn. But I feel in Newcastle, he went through so many partners up front. He wasn't... Yeah,
the Sutton signing, if I remember rightly, because people, I mean, Sutton's obviously not world class. I mean, he wasn't the same caliber as what Shearer was, but
no.
He was brought in to complement Shearer at the time. Dalglish obviously looked at him, and he obviously did the Blackburn team wonders, and those two were the top two strikers alongside. They had Gallagher, I think, at the club as well at the time, but generally they were definitely the two guys up front. But when he went to Newcastle, he just got given whatever strike partner they decided to go and buy and stick up front, whether it be a Spria, Les Ferdinand, or whoever basically at the time.
Craig Bellamy. Totally agree with that comment as well, Gav, actually. But again, like we're saying different eras again now, so we can't really compare it to today's. I don't
agree with that comment with Dave. I don't think defences are better now. I think they were.
No, I don't agree with that.
No, I think it's the art of defending's gone out the window a little bit. So,
I think on that comment that Dave just said that it was they're better now. I think they're trained better because of the diets and stuff. But as a defender defending. Back in them days, back in the old Premier League, they were tougher because they were for every game. You know, they did a show for another day is world class defenders, and we can go into that again down the line. But we'll move away from Shearer in a minute. But I just want to bring up one goal that stands out for me for him, and it's not really in his locker because do you remember the goal against Everton he scored, the volley?
Yes, that awesome volley. Yeah, the one where he hit it.
I believe Richard Wright was in goal for Everton. Got his moved to Arsenal, I believe, 2 seasons after, which is nothing to be shone at. But we'll move away from Shearer. Guys, if you want to comment anything about Shearer, comment away. Paul's going to go on to his striker now.
Yeah, so obviously we're only picking a handful of players out. We're trying to do like for like, really basically just to sort of move it along, really. We'll answer that in another debate day, but I think as I said, I don't think we had two strikers up front at all times. I think it was a different type of play. We talked about long balls and things like that, but there was a lot when we talk about defenders being better back then. We're talking about the 70s and 80s as well. I mean, some of your defenders you had with Liverpool, which were phenomenal in that time. Can you say that they are basically better now than what they were back then? They had different types of balls, different type of pitches. They had divots. They had things to deal with.
Different style of players. Different style of play as well.
Yeah, I think it's naive to think that you suddenly just go they're better than what they were. I don't think
different era. It's a different era.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on to Andy Cole, which is my choice, which was basically pretty much obviously Blackburn's. Newcastle's answer to Alan Shearer at the time. So Cole debuted at the age of 19 actually at Arsenal. He didn't actually break through at the club, and he had to drop down a couple of divisions, which was a big thing basically for players to do. So we're talking about that. I mean, obviously he's not quite Vardy-esque, but actually Andy Cole did have to drop down a couple of divisions with sort of Bristol. I think it was Bristol Rovers.
Make a name for himself, basically.
Yeah, so he had to come back up again. His records. I mean, I'm going to go with stats initially just to sort of go through it, but he scored 229 league goals in 509 appearances, which obviously he's in the top, obviously Premier League rankings right now. He will get beaten because that's the nature of the game. But the surprising stat for me was he played 15 times for England, okay, and scored once. Can you believe that a goal ratio, basically what he was doing in the Premier League, and he'd only basically scored one goal for England, and it just goes to show what the difference is between international football and domestic. Just going to basically just a couple of bits about Andy Cole. I don't want to sort of go on too much about him. Everyone knows basically how good he was in that era. He scored 5 goals against Ipswich and a 9-0 thrashing. His goals he used to score weren't just basically just sort of tap-ins. One of my favourite goals he ever scored was an overhead kick, basically in the Champions League against Marseille. Can you remember? Because people don't remember these, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Andy Cole, basic guy who primarily people think just scores in the box. Okay, scored an overhead kick. And then the other one as well was the goal he scored with York against Barcelona, which was the 1-2, and he did it twice. It was 2 1-2s, and at the time, again, people talk about Andy Cole for just his goals. He was an assist machine as well. The work he used to put in, especially when Dwight York came into the frame as well. So, have you got anything you want to say about Andy Cole at all?
Yeah, you touched on a few things there, and by his goals. I particularly like his goal against Spurs for United, where he tipped over the defender and then volleyed it as well. That was a beautiful goal. I actually never knew he'd be going at Arsenal, would you believe? I actually didn't know that.
No.
But he's also played in the Premier League for other clubs as well, like Blackburn and Fulham.
Yeah. He scored a 35-yard volley for Blackburn against Liverpool. It was phenomenal. Can you remember that?
I remember that goal. One of my favourite goals he's ever scored. What a goal that was. And they actually beat them, I think, at Anfield as well.
Yeah.
On Andy Cole, though, he didn't rely on so much, like I said, an assist machine. I think his chemistry or his on-the-field stuff with Dwight York is probably the best. It's like a best friend. He was like his best friend on the pitch. One knew where one was the whole time. I'm here. I'm going to head this ball this time. You run. Or it was the other way around.
Do you want to know the interesting fact with Andy Cole then, Dwight York? So that summer, when United went and basically we'd agreed a deal to sign Patrick Kluivert rather than Dwight York. It was all over. old school teletext. I can remember it. It was like United signed Kluivert from Milan and all this sort of stuff. And then suddenly he went to Barcelona instead. And when Dwight Yorke got brought in as a sort of like an alternative, he was brought in to replace Andy Cole. He wasn't brought in to actually play with him. And what Andy Cole did was Andy Cole effectively made him his best friend. That was his way of keeping himself in the side because he knew that Dwight Yorke was coming in to replace him. And the rest is history. The rest is history. So Fergie was a genius, but Fergie was bringing Yorke in to replace Andy Cole, which is just ironic.
And you know what? And the international front again, I know it's different from domestic. It's hard to believe he only played 15 times. Forget about the one goal. He only played 15 games. Why is that?
This is why. I mean, my next one in a bit after you've done yours. This will show it as well. But this was my argument I had on another show not long ago, that I actually think that we had so many great strikers through the 90s that players weren't even getting a look in. So Andy Cole, I mean, I haven't looked into it, but I imagine out of those 15 caps, how many of those did he start? I imagine
not many of them. Not many.
No. So yeah, obviously the goal scoring ratio 1 is poor, but when you're getting snippets of 20 minutes here and there, then and you're never really getting a crack at the England because you've got to deal with, well, Shearer and Sheringham basically were the top two at that point. No one was getting in, regardless if your name was Robbie Fowler or Andy Cole or Chris Sutton or Ian Wright. No one was getting in. So
I believe as well, his son is playing right now.
Yeah, he broke through at the Man City.
Yeah, he was a Man City trainee at Man City. He's been all over the football league. He's actually in Motherwell at the moment. Yeah. Is he repeating his father's trend to then go to the top? Can you see him in the Premier League? Devante, his son.
No, I think he's a slight different player to Andy, isn't he? He plays a bit more. He's a
deeper,
bit more of a winger. Yeah, he's a bit more of a winger based style player. He's
more pace about him, really, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think we should move on. I think because we want to try and get as much in as possible without going too far. You've got your second choice, which is a true legend, in my opinion, true legend, and a gritted teeth, but he is a true legend.
Okay, and I've gone for Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
I get into what I'm going to say about what we said off air about his international thing he did, but we're going to his stats of it here now. We're going as a youngster at Arsenal with Wenger, but Wenger he was only as a youth player and was used as a winger. He wasn't a striker for Monaco. He was a winger. Wenger, when he went to Arsenal, then signed on. Well, Henry then went to Juventus, who probably was his rock bottom moment, in my opinion, because it wasn't looked at in that team. Barely made an appearance for Juventus. Then Wenger saying, I'm going to save this guy, bring him to Arsenal, convert him to a striker. His records for both domestic club, even after Arsenal, he was so prolific at Barcelona and Red Bull. He came back to Arsenal as well for a long period and still scored for Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think this guy has absolutely everything. I think if there was again, you say you don't like comparing players with obviously the Kane and Shearer. I think you can compare Henry with Mbappe. They're very, very similar pace, finishing.
Yeah, but Henry's got
everything, hasn't he? 2 feet,
like his advert said, basically, vavaboom. He's got that.
Vavaboom. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just. I tell you what. Sometimes the way Henry played. He played with the arrogance of Eric Cantona. That's who he used to remind me of. They weren't the same players nowhere near. But the way he used to control the players around him, and I don't mean like a captain control. I mean like just orchestra. He used to literally orchestra the front line, and him and Bergkamp together were just
magic.
Yeah,
magic.
Phenomenal. Yeah, those two were just phenomenal together up top. It was just
And you said about Andy Cole being an assist king, but Henry has over 100 assists as well. So
yeah. Well,
Henry wasn't selfish, I think he's got 2 feet. He had absolute pace to ball, and he always had this finish ball, but he would just pass the ball into the corner, make it look so easy.
Yeah. He used to just like. Yeah, I don't have any words I can say for Henry. He was just I don't care what anyone says when they're putting in their top 5 strikers ever
he's
to
in
play
there.
in the Premier League. He's in there every time. Yeah,
I'd have him in my top 3.
Yeah. He was just phenomenal. And,
he was a genius. He was a genius.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think there's a couple of goals I want to go through, and they're all different types of goals. Champions League against Sparta Prague, outside the foot. Do you remember that one?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. The thing about Henry's goals, you forget. You think it's the best one, then you see that one, which is the one I've just obviously seen, and you think.
And again, this is better than this one, but this is better than this one, but this is better than this one.
Yeah.
Another goal again, you obviously remember this being a Man United fan. He's a flick over to Gary Neville and then just avoid that ball instantly to beat Man United 1-0.
Yeah, that was the day basically Bartes' Manchester United career ended. So yeah.
And then another type of goal where he gathers the ball from his own half against Spurs, again the North London derby, biggest game for them of the season. And basically takes on everybody and scores an absolute world. He dribbles past the whole team and passes the ball into the corner. And then this is all domestic. We're talking about this domestic, but internationally, he's French all-time goal scorer. He's our second appearance holder. He's won the World Cup. He's won the Euros. What more can this man have won, in your opinion?
Maybe the Fair Play Award against Ireland.
Well, we're going to that a bit now, being Irish. My only thing I'm not going to call it, look, he's a cheat for that. Okay, we'll say the word cheat, because it's a World Cup qualifier. We're playing Ireland, my team, my country.
Yeah.
He handballs it. We know he handballs it. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question now, and if anyone wants to comment on this, I'm hoping my Irish friends are watching this. Would any other player at that time in the game have done that to get your team into the World Cup? Paul, what would you say? And then we can have the people comment if they want to.
What are you saying? So any other player?
So would have England? So would have who'd be the front? Would Michael Owen have handballed the ball to keep it in play to play the ball across for a tap-in and send our team to the World Cup?
No, not Michael Owen. He's far too much of a good guy.
No, but I'll make an example. It's just an example.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I wouldn't like to put a name on it, to be honest. I don't know who else would do, really. It was a snap decision, maybe. I mean, going back to someone like Alan Shearer, he might have done something like that because I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
it's hard because it's not a very English thing to do, is it? We don't
it's definitely a French thing, anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, so.
But the thing is it cheating?
Yeah. What would you say? If you were,
obviously.
Put it a different way. If we were playing Sunday League, yeah, and the opposition player did that, would you say that's cheating?
Yeah.
Well, there you go then. That's your answer. Take away the million.
I was playing a game actually last year. This is a true story. Last year I was playing a game on field. They had a through ball. I bowled the ball on purpose to deny the through ball. And as it didn't hit my hand, we played on. And they were going to score. Didn't even get a booking or nothing, so it was brilliant.
You got much more? Shall I move on to the next one?
The last thing I just want to say about Henry before we do move on. He's got 51 goals for France.
Yeah.
That's his all-time. That's the all-time record. You know about England having that many strikers. So did France. How do you get this? And that's saying, how can he score so many goals with the many options you had in front as well. Your Trezeguet's, Dugarry was good at the time.
Djokovic. Yeah.
Zidane.
Yeah. Again, international football is a bit of a mystery sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes players can score a belt load if your name's David Healy for Northern Ireland, stroke and then obviously domestically you're nowhere near as good. But yeah, it's always a mystery, isn't it, with international football?
Okay, Paul, let's move on to your one.
Cool. I'm going to move on. I'm just going to briefly, because I forgot to do something with Andy Cole, and just really, really briefly before I move on to Dave's favourite subject in a minute, which will be very surprised from a Man United fan talking about a Liverpool player. But Andy Cole actually won the Golden Boot in 93-94, and a young PFA Player of the Year in 93-94 as well. So he was doing it younger as well. So, but I'm putting that to bed now. But I forgot to.
That was in Newcastle, wasn't it?
Yeah, both at Newcastle. I mean, he was in the Team of the Year in '99, which you'd probably find he should be.
So did Shearer replace Andy Cole?
Yeah, that's what I was saying to you. I think it was like almost his version of him, wasn't he? So,
yeah.
Right, I'm going to move on to my second player, who it's a shame that Dave's not on here right now because I think he would enjoy this. But he's not, so therefore that's fair enough. But I'm going to talk about Robbie Fowler, who Liverpool fans, quite rightly so in my opinion, we used to call him the God. This guy was absolutely phenomenal, and I was, out of all the players who Liverpool have ever had, ever in my lifetime, this is the player which I was the most envious of. Yeah, he was absolutely stunning in every single way. I loved him. He made a debut at the age of 18 against Fulham and scored on his debut. In a cup game, and then in his second game against Fulham in the second leg, he scored all 5 goals against them. So after 2 appearances for Liverpool, Robbie Fowler was on 6 goals. Now, I am not even going to basically pretend that this guy should have got more games for England, because he should have done. He only played 26 times for England. Only scored 7 goals for England. I mean, what does a guy have to do? I mean, his actual record in the league should have been a lot better, but that's because for some stupid reason, Liverpool sold him to Leeds. But he scored 186 goals and 460 appearances in the league. But just to basically put it into context, what this guy was like. One of his top goals I love, he was out for 7 or 8 weeks with a broken leg. So 7 or 8 weeks with a broken leg, which is like, I mean, what is that even about? He then comes back and scores a winning goal. But some of his goals were absolutely phenomenal. One that stands into mind is basically at Old Trafford when it was Eric Cantona's comeback game, and it was the whole fanfare was round the fact that Eric Cantona was coming back. It finished 2-2 in the end, and Robbie Fowler did an absolute delightful chip over Peter Schmeichel to the point of view where you just sat there, and out of everything else, that was the goal, which was just phenomenal. And he could do it all with close range chips. He used to rocket it with his left. The left foot was a wand. This is the thing about Fowler. Everyone talks about him basically being a goal scoring machine. The goals he used to score were sort of like 30, 35 yards out a lot of the time. He used to smash them. He never lost his pace. And then when he returned back, a bit like Henry, he went back to Liverpool and obviously tried it again. But that's got to be, you take out mistakes or regrets, that's got to be one of the biggest regrets of Liverpool Football Club, that they let Robbie Fowler go. He should have stayed, and he should have fulfilled his full potential. So
I totally agree.
Anything you want to talk about Fowler?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, he's the best left-footed striker in the Premier League. to this day. To this day. He also played for Man City as well.
Yeah.
He still scored for them. My best memory actually of Fowler was on his return back to Liverpool. I think it was Birmingham they played, and he scored, but it was disallowed.
Yeah, I remember that goal. He was absolutely gutted, wasn't he?
Yeah, on his return, and all the posters are all about Fowler and Return of the Messiah, the God, and all this. And you see his face, and he's like, I can't believe I've been denied a goal again, and I'm back home again. And he touched that word you say, regret.
Yeah.
That is a big regret for Liverpool. That he should have stayed there, start to finish. Start to finish.
I mean, personal accolades for the young man was, I mean, he didn't get that many, to be fair, apart from he won the Young Player of the Year twice, which obviously he would have done. Ironically, after we've been talking about Henry, he won the UEFA Fair Play Award. So that's obviously quite a big achievement, basically, while we're talking about Henry. But to me, as much as we talk about Henry being top 3, top 5, Robbie Fowler, to me, in the Premier League era, without doubt, one of the top 3 English strikers. Yeah, it's got to be. When we talk about Harry Kane of this world, Harry Kane...
That was Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, Robbie Fowler, for me, quite rightly so. I'll end it on that basically he was God to Liverpool fans, and he should have stayed.
I have one more memory actually of Fowler, and I remember this very well. When he played for Leeds, big shout out to Lewis. Big shout out for Lewis, Robbie Fowler played against Bolton and scored a hat-trick.
Yeah.
Won the game 3-0. I remember having the noseband as well on his nose as well. I remember that distinctively.
Yeah. I think the problem with Fowler was that when he left Liverpool, it's a little bit like a lot of clubs when they leave certain teams. It's a step down, and no disrespect to Leeds. Leeds brought Fowler when they didn't actually need him. They already had Robbie Keane, they already had Viduka, Smith. So they brought Fowler in and really just didn't need him. And he was only at Leeds for 2 years, I think, and
not even.
Right. And the funny thing is, if you look at his goal scoring record, when people talk about, so when Robbie Fowler went back to Liverpool and he was over the hill a little bit, his goal scoring record for Liverpool the second time round wasn't far off what it was for Leeds. So there's a massive step down in performance for him, or pace, or injuries, or game time. But he scored not far off, and that's the thing about Robbie Fowler. I think it's the biggest regret, I think, of most. Yeah, I can't quantify it. So
I'm going to use something really, really random now, and this means nothing about the stats or anything about Fowler. His squad numbers that he's been wearing, and I remember this very well. He's wore 7, 8, 9, and 11. He's never worn number 10.
No.
But he was iconic at the start for Liverpool wearing 23. But the numbers 1 to 11, 7, 8, 9, and 11. He never wore number 10.
Probably wasn't available.
But it's just random because he was 7 and 8 for City. He was 9 obviously for Liverpool, and he was 11 for Leeds. So
should we move on to the next one? And this is a guy who's very close to my heart. Move on to the next one.
So basically, guys, we think Premier League-esque players. So our last 2, we're going to call them overseas, foreign, or whatever way you want to describe these guys. Well, this is my first pick, or my last pick, shall I say. Gabriel Batistuta.
What a player.
Absolute animal of a man. Actually, sorry, Dave. Just in case you're watching, Akin Fenwa is not mentioned today.
That's next week.
Yeah, stay tuned. So basically, Batistuta, guys, played over Italy, but we can both agree, Paul, he made his name in Fiorentina.
Yeah. Yeah. In a bang average Fiorentina side, I might add.
He carried that team.
Yeah. I mean, they had a couple of players coming through at one stage. They had Rui Costa. He was obviously a great Portuguese player.
Went on to big things as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Enrique Chiesa, who's Chiesa's dad, who's currently playing for Italy.
His son's playing.
Yeah, Enrique was a good player. And then Francesco Toldo was in goal for Fiorentina for most of the season, and people forget about how good he was as a goalkeeper because the guy ahead of him. But Batistuta for me was phenomenal.
I'm going to give you a few stats from what I've gathered now about him. He's predominantly known for scoring a volley, and he has 249 goals in 430 appearances. He's the second all-time goal scorer in Argentine history, behind the man Messi. For a very big lad, for a very big person, he had blistering pace, absolutely blistering pace. Left defenders for dead. Can you add anything, or have you a goal in mind, or anything you want to add about Batistuta in your eyes?
So for me, there was a goal which he scored. I was actually at the game when United were playing Fiorentina in the Champions League. I think it was around about. I'd imagine it's about 98. I think it was approximately. It might have been 97. I think it was the season before we won the Champions League, and he was. To be honest, it wasn't so much the goal which I remember. The goal was again. The goal I can remember was it was a volley. It was pure class again, but it was the way he wrestled with the back line of United. He wouldn't leave them alone. I always remember it. It was just Gary Neville had an absolute shocking game that game. Not because basically because of anything he was doing wrong. It's because Batistuta went and stood on him. He went and stood on it, and it was just. But that's my memory of Batistuta. Other than the fact is that when I was younger, I used to watch Channel 4. Over in I don't know if you had it over in. Mind you, you're a bit younger.
I remember that.
When the Serie A league was phenomenal, where every team had world class players. Batistuta for me, every time they're doing a top 10 goals for the week. It was Batistuta.
He was in it. At
the back of the net. So my fond memories are of Gabriel Batistuta are phenomenal. And if he chose to leave Fiorentina earlier and go to Milan or
he went to Roma, didn't he? He went to Roma.
He went to Roma in the end. Yeah, he went to Roma when he was about 31 and still basically won the league with them. So that's how good he was. He went to them and won the league in the first season. I know United tried to sign him. Fergie came out with it. He tried to sign him, like he did with a lot of players, but he did try and go after Batistuta. So
and another thing on Batistuta was he was a captain as well.
Yeah.
So again, a leader on the pitch, and he's not a greedy player again because again he's a lot of assists again. I think for Argentina, his relationship with Ariel Ortega can't go amiss. I think them two are on the same page.
Yeah, see, Ortega was one of those players again, which
Parma wasn't he? Was he a Parma? I believe at the time.
I think he went to. He made his name Ortega at Valencia. Actually, he was at Valencia and made his name there.
When Batistuta was at Fiorentina, he was at Parma.
Yeah. I think Ortega didn't have a very good time in Italy though. Ortega, it was definitely Spain where he did it, but yeah, I would put him basically as world class, one of the world class strikers.
Where would you rank him in the world of all time? In your opinion, is he the top 10 of all time, or is he a top 5 of all time?
I think the problem with Batistuta is that he's never going to basically be that. He's never going to be. If you turn around to many people on our group, okay, or actually no, scrap that. So like, I've got 2 kids, okay, who are 2 boys who are 12, okay. If you turn around to them and say, Henri, they'd know who he is. If you turn around to him and say Alan Shearer, they'll probably know who he is. You say Gabriel Batistuta, I'm not too sure. And that's the problem with Batistuta. For all his loyalty, he then ended up not doing what he should have done, which is go on and be a world-class striker. And I think it's because obviously Argentina didn't win anything while he was in the side as well. That didn't help. That there was no World Cup, and that didn't help the situation. And then obviously Messi came along and rewrote the whole history of Argentina. That obviously he was their best player.
And when people talk about Argentina, the first two they mention is Messi and Maradona.
Yeah. And ironically, because Batistuta was playing at the same time when he first went to Fiorentina, I think, when Maradona was there. I'm sure they had a season or two in Serie A together. But yeah, that's by the by anyway. So, but yeah, I've got nothing else to say about him really.
So you was going to your last one there, Paul?
Yeah. So my last one is probably the greatest out-and-out striker we've probably seen in the last sort of 20-25 years, in my opinion, and that's Brazilian Ronaldo. Yeah, the guy, I can't even pick out. The guy scored that many good goals. I can't pick out my top three, really. All I can do is talk about certain ones he scored. Obviously the hat trick against Man United, but obviously the goal he scored. That
last goal was unbelievable.
And then the goals he scored, a lot of his really good goals, people don't see or don't remember, and they're the goals he scored for PSV. So when he was in Holland, and a certain Romario actually recommended Ronaldo to Barcelona, and within 3 months he'd signed for Barcelona. But the goals he used to score, I mean, I'm going to give you some stats. Okay, so in Ronaldo's debut season, he debuted at 16. In Brazil, he scored 44 goals in 47 appearances for Cruzeiro.
Nice.
And then he left and then pretty much had the same record for PSV. Then he went to Barcelona and did the same there. I think his most goals he's scored is 46 goals in one season, and that was actually for Barcelona, I think, before he went to Inter Milan. He's won the FIFA World Player Year for 96, 97 and 2002. This is before Messi and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo. So these are sort of these stats weren't around before then. So the problem with Ronaldo was he was tarnished a little bit because when he went to Inter Milan, which was, I don't even know what happened then. He was at the top of his game at the age of 20. I think he was 22 when he was at Barcelona, scoring his 46 goals, and then randomly he goes and signs for Inter Milan, who haven't won a Scudetto or haven't won anything in a number of years, and they're partnering him up front with Vieri, who was also a very good striker as well.
Yeah, the strikers as well. They had Recoba as well, and they had Calon as
Baggio.
well.
Baggio as well. Roberto Baggio was there as well at the time. The problem with Ronaldo, obviously, injury struck with him when he was at Inter. He was out for a long time, and then he got his move to Real Madrid, and the rest is history, because obviously that's when he obviously came back into it. Because if you think about it, a player who's so phenomenal, he wins FIFA World Player of the Year in 1997 and doesn't get a sniff until 2002. And that was a time when he was at Inter Milan. So it sort of shows where, when we talk about Fowler basically having his regrets, maybe Ronaldo had his regrets leaving Barcelona at the time, because he could have really sort of made if you imagine a forward line of Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and Rivaldo.
Or Romario.
Rivaldo.
Or Romario. You could have Romario there too.
Yeah, but if you imagine those three for club level, and they're playing for their country as well at the same time, how phenomenal would that have been? So it just goes to sort of show what decision making happened, and he may not have had his injuries. He obviously had his had his moment in France '98 as well, which had an impact on him as well. Which obviously people talk about that like it was the biggest thing, and then he came back in 2002 and obviously won the World Cup anyway. So it's sort of but yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
you touched on it about the players there, but his front three at Real Madrid were just as good because they have players like Raúl and Luis Figo.
Well, he was introduced to he was part of the Galacticos, wasn't he? That big Galactico thing where
the golden era for them, really.
Yeah, I remember watching that game when Barca were playing Real Madrid, and Figo went to take the corner, and a pig's head was thrown at him. It was different sort of game again, but the team they had then when Real Madrid literally went out and signed obviously Beckham, Zidane, Figo, Ronaldo,
McManaman.
Yeah, McManaman. Yeah, free transfer.
Roberto Carlos.
That's why Robbie Fowler left, really, wasn't it? Because McManaman left. So,
well, I think you've covered everything there. But I think he's just like for someone like Romario to recommend. Having said that, Romario scored over 1,000 goals in his career. Like,
yeah.
Romario is no mug. For him to say go to Barcelona and make a name for yourself, that just shows how much of a compliment or how much he appreciated Ronaldo as a person and as a player to play one of the biggest teams in the world.
The thing about Ronaldo was he was, without doubt, an absolute beast from an early age. I'm just looking at his record. So these are just league appearances. In fact, you know what? I'm going to go and have a look to see what his actual record at PSV was before he... let's see if I can find it. So PSV Eindhoven, in his first season, so young lad, 17, okay, he scored 35 goals and 36 appearances overall.
It's crazy. A goal a game.
Yeah. Then it was the second season, and he only played 21 games, but scored 19 goals.
Only.
So overall, 54 goals and 57 appearances. And then he makes that step up to Barcelona, and he scores 47 goals in 49 appearances. I mean, what can you say? The guy, when we talk about, I mean, it must be the name, because when you talk about a player who can go to his first 3 clubs, okay, and pretty much, I mean, let's play around with maths here. It's not exact, but the guy made 150 appearances and scored 150 goals in 3 different teams.
It's a goal a game. It's a goal a game, and what's he supposed to do? Is and again, you say about Batasuta and Shearer and Henry. Ronaldo doesn't score tap-ins. Ronaldo scores really, really, really good goals.
Yeah,
and we couldn't pick a top 3 off air. We couldn't pick a top 3. We could actually pick a top 20 of his best goals. That's how good they were.
Mine were more memory. So, he scored a Barcelona goal against Real Madrid, his first Clasico, and he literally picked up the ball from the halfway line. I remember it was at the Bernabeu because they were wearing their horrible green and black kit, striped, and he picks up from the halfway line, and it's the first. To be honest, it's the first time I ever watched Spanish football, and I remember watching the game. And this, obviously, Ronaldo picks up the ball from the halfway line, pretty much takes on the whole of the defence and bangs it, and doesn't just tap the bugger in. He literally smashes it into the top corner, and then that was me going, "Wow, this is Spanish football." And it was that made me get into Spanish football. So yeah. So Ronaldo's my pick.
And guys, that's our 6 for today. For another show, this won't be next week. This will be down the line, of course. There'll be more of these retro shows. If there's any other striker that you think we've missed, or we have missed the last striker, if there's anyone you want us to talk about in detail, there's a lot of names you could mention right now, and we'll give it away. But guys, this is your show as well, so we want to hear what you have to think as well. We've obviously missed a lot of them, but we're not counting now. It's retro. It's in the past. But Paul, before we leave all the strikers, how privileged are we to have seen those six play?
Yeah, I think so. I think they were all quality in their own right. I mean, the argument is can you compare Andy Cole to Ronaldo? No. Why?
No.
Because Ronaldo was a much better player than Andy Cole all round. But when we're looking at basic great strikers, yeah, you can do, and I don't know if we're going to see another Ronaldo, another Henry. We talk about obviously comparing players, but until these players start scoring these sort of goals again, and I don't think we can compare it. But yeah, privileged to again watch these games, and it's the moments as well. It's not just about goals to score; it's watching those moments, like for you, seeing Henry do it at that point, and you going, "My God." Me watching Ronaldo do that for Barcelona against Real Madrid.
My God.
Those moments are key, aren't they? So,
and not just goals, because that's what their job is, and moments, but achievements as well. Golden boots, Ballon d'Ors, PFA awards, Premier League Players of the Year awards. These guys are no mugs. These guys are world class in their own name. The six that we've named today arguably would be in the top 100 of all time.
Yeah, I definitely in the top 100
of all time.
I think the only thing I'm disappointed today about today's show is I haven't had Dave on talking about Rob. He's heard me talk about Robbie Fowler, and he's not going to comment live on it.
And so, he's not, and he obviously missed us talking about Akinfenwa as well. So there's that as well.
Well, we've got one more comment just to basically put on, which has popped up.
Yeah.
Let's just get it up on here. Oh.
That one, is it?
Yeah. So answer that one.
Average goals per game are higher now than they were in the 90s. I think because we have a little thing with three little letters called VAR. We won't go into that. But no, the game, it's different era. Look, are we going to have the same debate in the next 10 years? Is there going to be less goals or more goals? There's a lot of goals in the Premier League alone this season than I've never seen before. The score lines speak for itself. You know, Liverpool losing 7-2, United losing 6-1. How many goals in games? I made a bold prediction this season. Somebody's going to score 10 this season in a league match, and it is coming. You won't see that. You won't see that now in the 90s because no one's going to let it, because the players back then are no mugs. It's just the way I think it's the way they're coached, in my opinion. Paul, what do you think?
I think I'm under the illusion that I think if you go looking for a stat, you'll find it. So did I know that Ronaldo had done what he'd done? No. So we're talking about games per. Would I know that? No. Did I know that Andy Cole had scored one English goal, basically one England goal? No. Until you go looking for it, you start realising basically that it's not quite what it was, or you've got rose tinted on a little bit. But at the same time, I do think it's different eras. I think that the way defenders are scored now, like if you put Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back in a Liverpool side in 1994, do I think he'd be renowned as basically a great player playing at right back? Who knows? But it's a different type of player to what was basically being played back then.
And on your question, I think Batistuta and Ronaldo would have bullied him. Yeah,
there would have been a lot more going, and it goes back. If you talk about some of the great players of the 70s and 80s, you talk to Alan Hansen. Basically, he will turn around to you and say to you that the balls and the pitches they had to play with were much different and difficult. They will say it's difficult, and do you know what? It's a crossover in every sport as well, because it's not just football it's in. We were talking obviously F1, and people turn around and try and tarnish what Lewis Hamilton's done for Mercedes, and they're saying, oh, he's got the best car and it's all this and all that and all that. They can only use the tools which are in front of them. So
Exactly.
I'll stick up for any player now who will turn around and go, it's harder at the moment. It's harder now because you can't get away basically with some of the stuff you could get away with 20 years ago. I'll stick up for it. But at the same time, I'd stick up for the players 20 years ago who turn around and go, it was basically hard about them because our pitches were shit. Sorry. Pitches weren't very good.
Yeah, but again, like the rules are changing. The game is going to change again in the next 20 years, the next 40 years.
Yeah.
But guys, we've seen 6 strikers. We've talked about 6 strikers today.
Yeah.
Just stay tuned today, guys. At 7 o'clock, we have the Gaffer's Gaff with the Gaffer David Ray. Paul has his show with Andrew on Thursday. With Andrew. Paul, do you want to talk a bit more about your show?
So we talk at the tap. Please come and have a listen in. If you've not listened to it yet, then do make some time to do it. It is getting better every week. This week we're talking about sort of eras a little bit. So the best England team in our era. We have different opinions from Euro '96 right up to now basically, I think. And then also free moments as well. So we've got, at the moment we have, that's a fan's choice. So that's Martin's choice. Same sort of thing, which is running week after week. If you want to put a choice in, you win it, you come on the show, talk about it. And to try and make it more interesting, one of the moments has to be a non-supporter club moment. I.e., if Dave was on it, he wouldn't talk about Liverpool all day long.
Which is very hard for him. To be honest. And on your topics for Thursday, no spoilers given now, but we've had Shearer, Andy Cole, and Robbie Fowler today. Are any of those guys going to be featured on the show? Do you think?
Or
mentioned? Or will they be mentioned? Or do you think?
I would say, going by what I think is going to be brought up from the England point of view, Alan Shearer probably gets brought up. Certainly from my moments, my 3 top moments, one of them is completely out there. It's nothing to do with my club, nothing to do with basically a popular. It's something which I witnessed myself, and it will always stay with myself, really, with that. But yeah, some things will come up, but they are very different subjects. We'll talk about it. There'll be a little bit debating around it, I think. I certainly want to debate someone's opinion. But yeah. We've got Brett on the show again, who will obviously always put it in there. But yeah, we'll have a really good sort of hours talk, and we will try and keep to the hour. But please, unfortunately, you're not on it on Thursday, are you, this time, because you're working? So
I'm working, so you lose the international the international voice this week. Well, guys, I just want to give a big thank you to Paul for tuning in today. Makes life so much easier. Makes life so much easier than last week when it was just me. So it's good. It's Paul. It's good to have you here, man. And we're the Armchair Pundits, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the show today. Next week, I have a Paul, but from the following week, it's going to be freelance. It's going to be a surprise. So you won't know what the show's about. I'm going to go into a topic. Next week, that's episode 4. Episode 5 is freelanced, and that will be a surprise. That will actually be revealed at the end of episode 4, what I will be talking about. So, guys, I want to thank everyone for watching, everyone who commented, and again, another thanks to Paul again. So, guys, thank you very much, and we're tap.
Thanks for your continued support. Speak to you soon. Bye.